If you wanted to advertise an initiative, your brand or your business, you would typically go to an advertising agency. They would do the conceptual work and they would execute on the creative and conceptual work for you. It would cost you a lot of money and there would be a lot of red tape that you had to go through. Well, the world has changed in the last 10 to 15 years with the advent of what is called online digital marketing, but particularly led by influencers. These are content creators who oftentimes are sector specialists or niche market specialists, and they would influence their followers to buy your products or to, act to your call of action. However, this has been an unregulated sector for the most part, and influencer marketing has come under fire many times over in the last couple of years, particularly when they find themselves on the wrong side of what society deems the ethical line. Where is the ethical line? In a recent situation, a group of influencers, 12 or so influencers, had promoted a program, an employment program. It was dubbed an employment program based in Russia that sought after young women who were looking for a fresh start in another country. They marketed this and advertised this as a good initiative. Many social media users had pointed out that this might potentially be a human trafficking racket that young women are being lured into. Many of these 12 influencers had since retracted their endorsements and have apologized to the public. But this begs the question, is it time to regulate the sector? Joining me for this conversation is influencer marketing lead at Republic PR, Asanda Munyu, attorney and content creator, Mokoena, along with wellness content creator and entrepreneur, Tidimalo Sehlako. Ladies, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Asanda, I want to start with you in this instance. Advertising has a long history of being a regulated space. You can't just willy-nilly advertise anything, particularly if you hope to see your ad on a traditional broadcast media platform or a traditional print media platform, or even on a billboard, right? There are certain codes, standards, ethics, and practices that you have to adhere to. In what ways is influencer marketing and influencer advertising different from what we understand traditional advertising to be?
Look, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. So when we think about influencer marketing, we think that it is an industry that is built on trust. So when people follow you, they follow you based on recommendations that you make that they assume is genuine. So when that trust is broken, it means that the entire ecosystem loses credibility. So the influencer loses credibility, the brand, as well as the agency. And that is really our biggest concern. When regulations come in, when you think about influencer marketing, it's a very growing, fast-paced industry. We've seen it grow from strength to strength over the past 7 to 8 years. And with a growing industry means that there'll be growing pains. So we've got regulatory bodies such as the Advertising Regulatory Body, as well as the IAB, which are slowly catching up with the growth. So the industry is trying to figure it out as well with the growth of it. Brands are learning on the job. Influencers are learning on the job. Agencies are learning on the job. So when it comes to regulations, we have the ARB that has these strict guidelines. We've got the IAB that has, built a marketing charter that is about code and ethics of the industry, and the big research where they've researched from different countries and they've seen how other countries do it and they try to replicate it in South Africa. At this very moment right now, it's on a voluntary basis. It's not exactly like the charter itself is not really enforced. And that's where we are lacking. We are lacking the laws that will enforce these charters and will enforce these guidelines.
Yeah. Apple, I want to bring you into the conversation here. Explain to us how this works. You're a content creator. You do influencer work on multiple campaigns. How does it typically work? How do you get approached? How do you get briefed? Do you get given a script? Is what you're saying a reflection of your endorsement of the action or the product or the platform? Or is it merely just a reflection of what the script is? Explain to us how that transaction plays out.
Sure. Thank you so much, Oliver. To Asanda's point, pretty much what happens is that you get in touch with an agent. So it would be an agent that obviously represents an agency, and after that you're given a brief. So as opposed to the traditional form of marketing where there's a script and the whole idea is to sell the product, you genuinely have to give a genuine input on what this product is and genuinely sell it. So at its conception, the influencer marketing space was always hey, I just bought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items, and of those items, these are items that I think are of value. So for example, you'd buy a lotion and you've got eczema or whatever the case may be, and that lotion really helps you out with eczema, and you get on the platform and you talk about it, and someone else will then be like, let me try it out because it seems like this person genuinely has used the product and the product has worked for them. But the crux of the matter is you are contacted by someone who works for an agency. The person gives you a script, and they give you just guidelines more than anything, as opposed to a script. They give you guidelines on this is what we want you to speak around, create content, be as creative as possible. So so that's pretty much how it happens.
Yeah, it's Apple. It's a little bit different from just being a reviewer, right? If I'm a reviewer and a manufacturer of certain devices sends me their latest release to review, they don't have editorial control over what I say. They hope that I say something good about them, and therefore the trust factor that Asanda spoke about remains intact. If I'm given a script about what to say, that trust factor sort of falls away. How brittle and fragile is the trust relationship between you, content creator, and your followers and those who consume your content and work?
You mentioned something very important at the introduction of this conversation regarding niche. So for every content creator, you're always encouraged to have a niche to you. So if your niche is lifestyle, that's the sort of content that you put out on your page. And you're hoping to attract other people who like a similar type of thing. If your thing is sports, that's the sort of content that you put out. And so if you are someone who is in a position where you are incentivized for giving a particular and usually a positive review regarding a product, then, it does tip the scale of how genuine is your review, so to speak, on the product. Because an influencer versus someone who is reviewing, you are on different scales. Because when you review, you are expected to give out a degree of truth. But when you're influencing on the other side, there's an expectation that you will sort of embellish what the product does and its benefits.
Yeah. Asanda, perhaps, maybe Tidimalo, to ask you this. And I perhaps want you to give reference to the nature of the work you do as a wellness entrepreneur, a wellness influencer. Are there limits to the sort of campaigns and influencer briefs that you would get involved in? And on what basis will you reject some work and accept some work? What is the determining factors for you there? Tidimalo, do we have you?
Pardon?
Hey, Tidimalo, perhaps to just repeat the question, perhaps you didn't hear me there. As a wellness influencer, as a wellness content creator and entrepreneur, if you receive a brief, what are the determining factors that you look at that will guide your decision on whether or not you will accept that brief or reject that brief, and how have you traversed that complexity thus far?
Absolutely. So as an influencer, I think it's very important to establish your brand identity. Establish what it is that you stand for and what it is that you want the public to know you for. So when you accept work, it needs to be in line with the things that you are already doing. So even if you are approached by a brand to do and advertise something for them for a specific product, it must be aligned to things that you also do without being paid for it. So that when people hear your voice, they know that you stand in authenticity because it's not new to your brand. Say, for instance, I'm a wellness, I stand for wellness. When people hear me speak about wellness, whether it's in the facet of lifestyle wellness, whether it's in the facet of social wellness, they know that there's a common thread within my brand that stands for wellness. Therefore, it should be true. Because in my regard, I'm going to a school right now where I'll be handing over food food parcels and solar-powered lights to the school. And it speaks to inequality and food insecurity, which is the wellness of the child. It's a common thread throughout my brand that speaks to authenticity and speaks to what I stand for. So when people hear my voice as an influencer, they know and they probably trust what I'm saying because it's a common thread and it must be true. It comes from my authenticity.
Yeah. Asanda, it would be unethical if influencers posted work or videos or content on social media and not indicate to their followers that this is paid advertising or paid work. Yet we still see a lot of influencers not do that. They don't declare that part. And is part of the regulatory thinking an enforcement of those standard practices?
Yes. So what we see now is influencers are very much uneducated. So the beauty about social media and the beauty about influencer marketing is that you come into this space and it's, what you mentioned earlier, Wild Wild West. I don't like that reference, but it is what it is. We call a spade a spade. So what we find is that influencers are not educated enough. So a lot of them don't necessarily know that it is critical that they disclose that this is a paid advert or this is a gifted thing that I've received or from a brand, whether it's a promotion of product or services. So it's extremely unethical that they do not disclose. However, the crux is
but who does, Asanda, who does the onus rest upon? Because I don't know any better either. If somebody said, hey, say something good about us and we'll pay you some money, I wouldn't know that it's a regulatory requirement, hypothetically, to disclose that I'm being paid for this. Surely then the brand or the organization commissioning me for this work bears the responsibility to inform me about what the regulatory requirements are for me to be able to do this. Because if I don't know better, I don't think you can hold me accountable to that which I don't know. But surely an organization commissioning the work is in a better place position to know what to do and what not to do. Should we perhaps not focus our attention on those who commission the work rather than those who execute the work?
No. So it's an ecosystem and we work with collaboration. So it's an all collaborative effort. So the responsibility lies with brand, it lies with the agencies as well. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. We just lost you there for a second, but you're back on.
Yes. So I'm saying it's a collaborative effort, right? So we can't only put the responsibility on the brand. It's a collaborative effort between all the stakeholders, the creators, the brand, as well as the agency. So the brand will have to put all these in the brief, as well as the training, as well as the guidelines. But we can't really exclude the influencers as well and the creators from this as well, because the onus is also on them. At the end of the day, it's their platforms, it's their reputation that they have to manage, as well as their followers and the customers that they have to protect as well. So in essence, it's a collaborative effort and we can't exactly put it on one stakeholder.
Yeah. Apple, is it a standard practice that influencers do research about the clients, the brands, the brief before they actually engage with it? Or do they take it for what it is and just be like, oh, they're paying me, so I'm just going to do it?
To be quite honest with you, I think it's a person-to-person type of thing. So it depends on the type of influencer that you are. If you're serious about your brand, and that's where you make your money, you are going to put in the time and the effort to research, because your reputation is everything in this industry. I mean, looking at the influencers who were involved in the recent debacle, I'm not quite sure if there's a brand that's necessarily going to reach out to them in the near future, at least, to say, hey, I really want to work with you on such and such, because we as the public, I'm now speaking from the perspective of a person in the public, we're going to side-eye that whole interaction. But yeah, so just going back to my point, I would recommend that if you're an influencer or if you're trying to get into the influencer market, do your research, always do your due diligence, know which companies you're dealing with, what that company's political affiliations are, because I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but just know the type of organization that you're getting into bed with, because that will have an effect on your reputation and whether if you're going to have some sort of longevity in the influencer space and if you're going to be used by other brands.
Yeah. Should we, Tidimalo, start fining, penalizing and sanctioning influencers that promote brands that cross the line ethically or even break the law quite outright or put the lives of people in danger? And I ask that to ask the question as a follow-up, if we do fine, sanction and perhaps even jail people, influencers who do that, would it change the overall behavior of market players?
I think the penalizing of just the influencer is a bit harsh, especially because it's a whole ecosystem. There's agencies involved. There's a whole ecosystem of organizations that are involved that actually bring people to that point. So just having the brunt of the punishment fall strictly onto the influencer, I find to be quite unfair. Maybe a penalization in terms of fines or time spent online or your ability to reach people, absolutely fine them for that, because it is your responsibility to inform people in a trusted way as to what it is that you are advertising on your space, because what you essentially have is a trust relationship with people, and if you break that trust relationship and people's lives end up being jeopardized due to that, there should be some repercussions. But regulation as an entire industry, I feel like, will be more effective than just putting the entire brunt of the situation on the influencer. And some of these influencers are young, are still learning and trying to find their feet, and also focusing on the day-to-day little bags, little pockets of money that they can find, because that's their daily bread and butter. So for a person who's focusing on their daily bread and butter to now face jail time because all they wanted was to be able to pay rent, I feel like is a little bit harsh. Maybe some sort of suspensions, but not severe.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. I have run out of time, and I think I wanted us to speak about what responsibility the platforms like the social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and the likes have in making sure that they don't give a platform to people to promulgate and propagate harmful campaigns and or products. But we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Really do appreciate it. That was Tidimalo Sehlako, a wellness content creator. Asanda Munyu, who is a influencer marketing specialist, as well as a public reputations specialist, as well as Mokoena, content creator. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have on that.